Hello, I'm back and I want to do the conference thing again. In the last video, I talked about how much I'm missing writing conference season and how much I miss particularly the conversations that we have at the bar when we're done the workshop day and we kind of debrief a little bit and we ask each other questions, and sometimes they're really random, right? My last video was about Facebook tips. And, somebody's having a problem with Facebook, and there's nothing I like more than being helpful and being able to say, I have the solution to your problem. Today I want to do something a little bit different, but the same. Like, imagine we're at a conference. And my second favorite conversation to have at conferences is the next morning, early in the morning before the workshops start. And I go to the bar. I always wake up early at conferences. I'm not a morning person, but I am when we're at conferences. And I tend to wake up early, and I love to go down to the bar because usually in a hotel, the bar also doubles as a breakfast place. And I don't like the buffet. I like to just go and order something quietly. There's always like a nice waiter who brings like a big pot of coffee. And I'm sitting there, and I usually don't book breakfasts because inevitably somebody wanders in and they're just like me. They wake up early and their head is full of conference stuff, and they want to talk about just what they learned yesterday, right? They see me, I wave at them, they come, they sit down. If we are ever at a conference and I'm sitting alone at a bar or restaurant, feel free to join me, because I love this moment so much. When they sit down and you can tell they're like brimming with ideas from the day before. Usually the inevitable first question is, what workshops are you about to attend today? What are you looking forward to today? Or what did you do yesterday? And what were your big takeaways? I love those conversations. I love those conversations more than like anything else. So that's what I want to talk about today. Is that how do I process what I've learned, and how do I choose which to immediately put into play, and which do I think are amazing, but maybe I don't immediately put them into play. All right. So here's the thing. And not everybody is like this. Not everybody has this personality type, but some of us, we hear somebody talk with all this positivity about something which is really has been a game changer for them. And we immediately go back to our hotel room and start making lists because we say, we want that to be a game changer for us too. We get fired up and we want to put it into action. And then I will often go to a conference, come away with a to-do list of 15 or 20 things, and maybe I do 2 or 3 of them. It's important for you to know that if you've been in that position, that's normal, right? That if you're doing the same thing that I'm doing, that's okay. That's totally normal. The other thing is to know that not everything works for everybody right away or on the same timeline. So I want to talk about 4 things that literally in the last week I have thought about in that maybe I should because it's working for somebody else. And ready? So I'm so rambly, but this is how I am at conferences. We're still having our coffee. We're pre-coffee. I actually am recording this in the morning. Anyway, so 4 things that I learned about over the last weekend. When I did a retreat and I attended a conference. It was a packed weekend. Patreon, newsletter automation, Facebook ads, and okay, I was giving this workshop, but let's imagine, should I start a new series, right? I gave a masterclass at the Chicago Spring Fling Conference, and by the way, you can now register for that conference retroactively and get access to all the recordings, including my masterclass. So I'll put the link to that in the description if that's something you're interested in. That conference will be live, that you'll have access to those recordings for a year, which is amazing. And so if you want to do a full day deep dive with me, go do that. They're a really good RWA chapter, and it's a great conference. Alyssa Cole gave a fire keynote address. You don't want to miss out. There's tons of really good workshops. Go do that and then come back in the comments and let's talk about what you learned from that conference. What are your takeaways? But also, should I do this thing? So the 4 things for me that I, am thinking, should I? One, should I set up a Patreon? Mine would not be for fiction. It would be for nonfiction. It would be Romance Your Brand stuff. Because in the last week, there have been a couple of things that I've seen that I've wanted to do videos on, but not make them public. Like I saw Hank Green do a weird TikTok about what's the best New York Times bestselling list. I have lots of thoughts on that, but I'm not going to blast him in public because it's not really blasting. But I do think that in a private setting, we could be more critical of that and really unpack what does it mean to hit a bestseller list? What number of sales? Like I can go and I can tell you exactly how many sales it took for him to hit that list. And it's not as much as ebook people who hit the list. But anyway, I slipped and I gave a little bit of that content here. So like, should I start a Romance Your Brand Patreon? If I did, what would, because I know that there are some people who are doing some really interesting things with Patreon. I'm going to loop back to that. That's one thing. That's the first thing that was on my mind this weekend. Two, newsletter automation. Am I doing enough of that? Do I have a really good onboarding sequence and am I segmenting enough? Every single time I see somebody talk about, I go to a workshop and I attend a lot of them when I'm at conferences because it's an area where I want to get better. And yet my email lists remain one big list and I send the same email out to all of them every single time. So if you sat down across from me in the bar and you're like, I went to this really great newsletter workshop yesterday, I would say, I was in that one too. I love that one. I really struggled with putting that stuff into action. Okay, 3, Facebook ads. So I haven't run any Facebook ads in a month because I was participating in the Stop Hate for Profit campaign, the boycott, and now we're coming to the end of July, and Facebook ads make a difference in my bottom line. So do I want to start them again? Do I not want to? Do I, at some point, we need to remember that it's not the little guy that hurts Facebook, it's the big guys. So I'm kind of on the fence about that. But at the same time, I really think that you can do a lot with cost per click ads. So I'm going to come back to that one, definitely. But that's something that's on my mind because of workshops that I attended this weekend. And then finally, do I start a new series? And here, even though I am the person who gives workshops on this topic, giving that workshop sparked something for me. I had a 99-cent Navy SEAL box set sale last week. And I'm going to do a whole separate I'm going to do some Marketing Monday videos and I'm going to talk about that box set in a separate video. And when I do, I'll come back and I'll link in the comments if you watch this video later. But it got me thinking that maybe, even though I don't have a whole Navy SEAL series in me right now, maybe I might want to write a standalone Navy SEAL book. And I'm nervous about that. And if we were at a conference, I would sit down at breakfast and I would hash that out with somebody. But we're all stuck at home alone. So here, I'm sharing with you that that's something that I am both excited and nervous about. And the thing with all of those, do I start a Patreon? Do I dig into doing newsletter automation again? Do I start Facebook ads up again? Do I write a new Navy SEAL book? All of those good ideas, I can see when they work for other people because they're on the other end. Because they talk about it at conferences on the other end of success, right? And what we often don't talk enough about are those early days where you give something a go and it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't move the needle. And then, do I keep going? Do I try? Do I persist? Or do I give up? And I give up way too often on these great ideas that I get from conferences. I give up because, oh, maybe it's not me. Maybe it is me. Maybe it's not going to work because it's me. Maybe I'm not the right person to implement this. And there is something to that because not everybody excels at every marketing effort. In fact, most of us don't excel at any of those marketing efforts because it's a very specific skill set and strength set that excels off the bat at marketing. That being said, if we are professional commercial genre fiction authors, we need to find a way for our team, us and whoever we choose to work with, to do better at marketing. Maybe not excel off the hop, but get better and stick with it. So anytime that I'm talking to somebody about an idea, I say 3 things. Everything starts out slow, everything takes time, and everything works when it's the right combination. And it takes time and it's a bit slow to find that right combination. So let's apply those 3 thoughts to, should I start a Patreon? I am like the queen of starting something new. I get an idea and I go do it. One of the workshops that I attended, one of the conferences that I was at this weekend was a Becca Syme Write Better Faster advanced retreat focused on the Clifton strengths. And one of my top strengths is something called activator. I love that go button. I love to push it. I love to there were a group of people at the retreat talking about when Patreon has been successful for them. And I avoided that conversation because I didn't want to get sucked in. And then I caught the tail end of it and I was totally sucked in. So I would love to know in the comments your thoughts on Patreon. It would not, I must underline this, it would not change the content that I produce for YouTube. It would be a way to okay, I'm just gonna back up for a second. So when I started writing fiction, I created a Facebook group because I knew that somebody said, I got really good advice. Somebody said, you know, make sure you have a reader group. And it's true, you need to collect readers, and I'm gonna do a separate Marketing Monday talk on this too. You need to collect readers where they are. If readers are email people, you need to collect them on email, so everyone should have an email newsletter. If readers are primarily a social media person, you need to collect them there. So I created a Facebook group. Now, I don't really want to create a Facebook group for Romance Your Brand because Facebook is a problematic platform. But 8 years ago, when I started writing, or like with an eye to publishing, it was a different time. So I started a Facebook group, and that Facebook group has been like the core of my readership for 7 years now. And I love that Facebook group so much. So I want to support Romance Your Brand with that kind of community. And a Patreon might be a great place to do it. The tiers would be low, like $1 a month or $2 a month or $5 a month, depending on access to what. And it wouldn't affect the public content that I create. It would be in addition to that. So do I want to do that if I know that everything takes time and starts out slow, but it also works when it's the right combination? I don't know. So I'm kind of excited about that, but also a little bit nervous, and I wish that I could have brunch with you so we could talk about it back and forth. So you might be thinking the same thing about something that you have heard here on YouTube or at a conference. Let me know in the comments if you're attending any virtual conferences like the Chicago Spring Fling one, or Emerald City is another one that's upcoming if you would rather attend one live. The Emerald City one has some amazing master classes. I'll put the link to that in the comments too if you're interested in romance specific conferences. Both of the ones that I put in the comments, I recommend. Okay. And the final thought that I'd leave you with, as we finish our brunch and as we get ready to go into our workshop, is just a maxim that I always have in the back of my head whenever I'm making a decision about should I do something or should I not. There are pros and cons to finding balance and having like a wide, stable stool that is our business. And there are also pros and cons to leaning into excellence and doing one thing really, really, really well. There are people who believe in the former, and there are people who believe in the latter. And I believe in both. I just don't think you can have them both at the same time. So if you are like me and you sometimes need to process things out loud, you need to talk about things out loud to figure out what is the right path for you. Sometimes figuring out whether or not it fits in, is this an approach that would create stability by balancing my platform better? Or is this something that would really lean into what I'm already doing and create excellence? And which of those do I feel better about, right? Some people don't want to be spread too thin. And some people, me, to be honest, get really stressed about having like that single narrow focus on like one path to success. And then the final thought is, you know, if you're not happy where you are, and I have definitely been there at times in my past, if you want to make a big change, you must make big changes, right? So tiny shifts, little pivots, at first lead to little change. Now, of course, a little pivot down the road gets you way away from where you are, but that's where that whole it takes time thing comes in, right? If you want to make radical change right now, then your pivot needs to be much larger off the hop. So anyway, I would love to hear from you in the comments. That's what I would talk about if I was to have brunch with you, and I'm really looking forward to eventually doing that in person at a real conference. And I hope that you have learned something from this video. If you have, subscribe, like, comment, share it with another writer friend who might get something out of this. And please comment so that we can continue this conversation, and I'll reply to questions both in the comments and in future videos. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.